Okay, sorry that video cut off there. I was losing track of how long that was taking. I'm using Screencast-O-Matic. If you've never used it before, it's a good screencasting tool. You just sign up for an account and then you can use it. You can make 15-minute videos and it cuts you off after 15 minutes. So that's what happened to me. But let's take a look at this text. Like I said, I'm not going to read it to you, but this is a good example of a text that is short, it's complex. Students can read it multiple times and look for different elements of the text each time. And it's a good text to create some text-dependent questions for. So let's look at what non-text dependent questions are. So when we ask these kinds of things about the text, and I think that these types of questions are very valuable for our students. They should be used in our classrooms. They promote a lot of good ideas for discussion. They help understand background information. So I'm not saying at all, don't ask these types of questions. But remember that our goal is we're trying to think about how to help develop the skills on a daily basis with our lesson that those students need to eventually answer and tackle a TDA prompt. So if we want to do that, we can't always just ask these non-text dependent questions. Here are some examples. Why did the North fight the Civil War? Have you ever been to a funeral or a gravesite? Lincoln says that the nation is dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Why is equality an important value to promote? Did Lincoln think that the North was going to pass the test that the Civil War posed? Again, you see, these questions are good and can be good for class discussion, but they aren't text dependent. So let's take a look at what text dependent questions can be created from this text. What is the point of including the phrase, any nation so conceived and so dedicated? What are the assembled people doing at Gettysburg? What is the effect when Lincoln says, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground? Look carefully at Lincoln's speech. Which verb does he use the most? Sometimes he uses it in the past tense. What does it mean the first two times Lincoln uses it? And what other verb is closely linked to it those first two times it appears? How is it used the next two times? What is unique about the way Lincoln uses it the final two times? There's a big difference between this set of questions and this set of questions. These are the questions that we need to be asking students a little more frequently. These questions require students to read the text multiple times. These questions might require students to look up definitions of words or to ask about what words mean. These questions might need to get answered correctly. They might need students to talk to somebody else, to hear other ideas from the classroom about how to answer these questions. So these are the things that we want to try to work into our instruction a little bit more. And kids need instruction in how to answer them. So your role as a teacher here in guiding them in the best ways to answer the questions, and the best way to answer it is by going back into the text and thinking about it and talking about it. That's your role here. Okay, so I'm going to finish this part of the video. When we look at the underlying components of a TDA, reading comprehension, comprehending texts that are complex, that's what we talked about. And remember, we don't need to write more TDAs in our classroom. We need to help students develop those individual skills that are going to help them write the TDA eventually. Yes, we should go through the process of writing TDAs with students, but we don't need to be doing TDAs constantly all the time. So take a moment, think about some of the things you heard, think about what you do in your classroom so far on a daily basis that you think help to promote understanding complex texts. Think about what you can do in the future on a more regular basis to help students develop those skills. We'll talk about analysis, which is the second underlining component of a TDA. a little bit later in a different part of this HyperDock.